I'm very happy to be here today and to be able to present the research that we did in the past 10 years. And we focused really on one of the risks that Lydia also mentioned, and that is cyberbullying. What I will try to do today is give you a general overview of the field of cyberbullying research, and after that I will go into some aspects of it, namely research on bystander behavior in case of cyberbullying, because that will give a smooth transition, I think, to the presentation by Sarah, because she will talk about one of our projects in which we try to create an evidence-based serious games on cyberbullying, and we would like to promote positive bystander behavior by using this game. So I will start to give a very general overview of cyberbullying, and I will also try to mention some of the opportunities I think that are there when using a more narrative approach in this field. Because as you will see, this kind of more qualitative research is quite uncommon in this field. Most of the research on cyberbullying dates back or started in 2004. Then there was a publication of Ibarra on cyber harassment. And since that date, well, a lot of studies have been conducted. At this moment, about 200 articles have appeared in peer-reviewed journals. And most of these studies are indeed quantitative in nature. Most of them are also cross-sectional. So you can see that, well, the data they generate are okay, but they don't provide very in-depth interviews in what is really going on there. Some of these studies, or most of these studies, have revealed some common trends. So what is very obvious from all these research studies is that cyberbullying is still less prevalent than, for instance, traditional bullying. If we look at our own studies, we see that 1 in 10 youngsters say that they have either been cyberbullied or have cyberbullied someone else. So that's a first observation. The second observation is that there is a very large overlap between cyberbullying and traditional bullying. So if we look at the perpetrators or the victims, we often see that they are the same persons. So most of the times, cyberbullying is really an extension of traditional bullying. And then the last observation is that although cyberbullying is less common, it may have a serious impact on youngsters, and even a more serious impact than traditional bullying. So here you can see the results of a study we conducted using a social network approach. So in this case, we went to one school and we provided the questionnaire to all the students of the same grade. And we asked them whether they had cyberbullied someone or had been cyberbullied by someone. And we also asked them about their friendship relations in school. So what you see here is really their social network. So this is the friendship network. So the lines really represent mutually acknowledged friendships. And then you see the squares. The black squares are the perpetrators in this case, and the gray boxes are in fact the victims, and sometimes you have also people who have both roles, so these are the bully victims, as we call them. So if you look at this graph, you will see that in fact it's not that common, cyberbullying. And if you would put the graph with traditional bullying on it, on side of this, you would see a very large overlap between the two. These are results of another study that looked at the mental health correlates of bullying. And here you can see indeed that cyberbullying causes more mental health problems like depression, anxiety, and stress than traditional bullying. So here you can see this is aligned with the cyberbully victims. These are the traditional victims. And those who have been cyberbullied and traditionally bullied, those students, in fact, have most or experience most problems. So qualitative research is quite scarce in this field. We did some of the research ourselves. We conducted some focus groups in Belgium. And the aim of our study was indeed to find whether or how youngsters themselves define cyberbullying. And here we really saw that they didn't consider everything that we perhaps consider cyberbullying really as cyberbullying. So getting an insulting email or somebody who is hacking your account, that's not always cyberbullying. They really say a lot depends on the context in which these actions occur. So if you look back to what kind of criteria they use, they really say that, well, it has to be something that is repetitive. The perpetrator really has to have the intent to hurt you. And it's also something that is limited to interactions between people where there is a power imbalance. So someone who is more powerful because he's more popular, for instance, or because he is also stronger in real life. So they really say that not all actions are considered cyberbullying, but that the context really gives you a perspective and tells you how to interpret some of these actions. This is then a quantitative study from an Italian colleague, and she used the results of our, but also other qualitative studies to conduct a vignette study using scenarios in which she indeed manipulated the criteria that we thought would be important to really get a good view of what youngsters perceived as cyberbullying. So indeed, the intentionality, the imbalance of power, repetition, and so on are really important criteria to classify something as cyberbullying. And that's also something that we, for instance, see in the study of other people. When they talk with youngsters, they also say that youngsters don't consider everything cyberbullying. Sometimes they use other labels like it's just drama, really referring to, well, a lot of things happen there on the internet, and sometimes it's just an argument or a conflict. It's not really like bullying in real life. There's no power imbalance. These are just friends or were friends, and we are dealing with this stuff online. Some other qualitative research or on cyberbullying used in-depth interviews. And here, these studies mostly concentrated on, well, what it means to be bullied or what it means to bully. And again, these studies reveal that a lot of things are going on there, that not all victims react in the same way or cope in the same way with cyberbullying, and also that bullies, perpetrators, may have very different motives. So some are really trying to take revenge, for instance. Others are just bored and try to get some excitement while being online. So there are a lot of things going on, and there are different perspectives when you look at this. I think that using a narrative approach, qualitative narrative approach, would provide very interesting insights into what is actually going on online. And I think that indeed it is, or it would be useful to use such methods, because indeed cyberbullying is a very complex phenomenon. There are several people involved. These people may have different perspectives of what is going on. You also see that there are a lot of interactions over time. Something happens, somebody reacts on it, and then it goes to the next level, and so on. So you really see many events appearing after a while. And what is also clear, indeed, for youngsters, there's no strict boundary between what happens on and what happens offline. So the two contexts are really interwoven. So here you can see what reality might be, or what reality might look like. So here you can see a lot of youngsters, and you can also see their position in the peer network. And there might be, for instance, a popular guy who's dating a popular girl, but there are also, of course, the other peers that are lower in the pecking order. And you see here, for instance, then another guy who is in fact also in love with the popular guy, but because she's already taken, well, he's dating a younger girl. And you can see what might happen in such a complex context. For instance, this guy might ask for a picture or naked picture of his girlfriend. And because he wants to become popular, he perhaps sends it to the popular guys. And because they are dating, the picture also ends up here with her. And because she doesn't like her, she can send it to someone else, and so on. So you have really a story of what is happening online and offline. I also think that the technologies offer a range of opportunities nowadays to have a look at this field. For instance, there are also many data online that are already there. For instance, if you go online, you can find a lot of stories on cyberbullying. This is a website from a helpline where youngsters have posted their stories about being cyberbullied by someone. What's also very common is indeed the kind of movies that you see on YouTube where victims tell their story about what it means for them to be cyberbullied or to be bullied. So I also think that we could analyze these because there's a lot of stories that are already available. Of course, ICT also offers possibility to conduct online interviews, and they also offer opportunities to really engage youngsters in telling their story, for instance, by creating their own movies on cyberbullying. So I think that we also should try to make use of these technologies and opportunities that they provide us. A last aspect or a last argument to use these narratives or narrative methods is that they indeed could give a nice basis or explanation for quantitative research, but also because they provide a basis for effective interventions. Because if you gather realistic stories on cyberbullying, you can also use these stories in a narrative communication intervention. And this is what was also already illustrated by Milde and Hecht. They did another intervention that was dealing with drug use and youngsters, but they indeed also started from what these youngsters experienced. They then tried to translate this in a health message, and they also said that, well, because these stories are so recognizable, so relevant for these youngsters, they have more, or they lead to more engagement, and they are more persuasive to them. So I think that collecting these stories also is a very good way to get to more effective interventions in this field. This is one of the only studies that also focus on cyberbullying, and here you can see also the connection between gathering, collecting narrative data on the one hand, and on the other hand, creating then interventions. Here, this is a study that asked youngsters to make a storyboard of a typical cyberbullying event. And they also had to use Post-its and put them on the storyboard when they thought that someone could do something to prevent or to stop the cyberbullying. So here you can see the story that they wrote with some clear events and some clear characters. A very popular girl and a girl that is not so popular. And the popular girl uses or misuses the picture of the not so popular girl. And they also wrote this, that, well, posting this on a Facebook wall then led to, for instance, many likes by the other pupils. And they really give a storyline that ends in school, where the events that happened online during the weekend are discussed also in the classroom. And that's also interesting because here you get concrete advice from youngsters themselves about what can be done. For instance, these youngsters also said that, well, perhaps social networks themselves, like Facebook, could intervene at some moment. If they see that some kind of pictures are posted online, and if they see a lot of likes, for instance, by youngsters, they can perhaps detect this and react appropriately, for instance, by removing the content. And that's something that will also be discussed in the presentation this afternoon by Kathleen, because we are also involved in a project that tries to automatically detect cyberbullying instances on social network sites. So for the general talk, what I would like to do now is have a closer look at bystanders. This is an example of a cyberbullying incident that happened on Facebook. And here it was a 14-year-old girl who posted this picture of her class at the end of the school year. And she wrote, well, I'm going to miss you so much. So it was some kind of farewell. And then she added some text here. This is a perfect class, except for, and she referred to the girl that she also put in black and white here. We all hate her. She's such a bitch, and so on. So these are really horrible comments. And I even saw this happening online while I was online. And within a few minutes, you saw a lot of people who were liking this. And there were also some comments from fellow students who were commenting on this and saying, well, yeah, that's nice, it's a cool picture, and it's nice what you've done to her, and so on. So you can already imagine that there are a lot of people who become involved in such an incident. And in this case, it was a picture that really reached, I think, a very large audience. Because the person who did this also tagged all the other persons, all the other students. So all the friends of the friends could also watch this happening online. So I think it's worthwhile to question, well, what should we do if we see this happening? What would be an appropriate way to react? Are you going to react online? Are you going to say something towards the bully? Or are you going to say something to the victim? So how are you going to deal with this? And it's all not only focused on youngsters as bystanders. We, as well as parents or adults, we can see this happening, and what should we do then? Until recently, not that much research was available on bystander behavior online. But we know from traditional bullying research that it is indeed, or that they play an important role. If bystanders really react and defend the victim, this will stop the bullying, because the bully is not reinforced in his behavior or her behavior. And it's also a good way to decrease the harm for the victim. The second reason to focus on these bystanders, who also most of the times are a very large group, is that it's much easier to change their behavior than it is to change the behavior of the bully or the victim. And we also see that interventions that are based on this principle, like promoting positive bystander behavior, that they are indeed effective. This is, for instance, the Kiva intervention program. It's a Finnish program, and it appears to be very effective in dealing with bullying. So what we did was also gather some more data on this. We conducted a survey We also conducted focus groups and experiments to understand the bystander behavior better. This is a study that I found that was done also by Australian colleagues that used a narrative approach, and they showed a movie to youngsters on a cyberbullying incident, and they were more interested in, well, who do they consider to be cyber bystanders? But I will focus on the results of these studies. So what we see, and these are the results from the survey, is that indeed many youngsters have seen something, have witnessed some kind of cyberbullying. About 60% of the youngsters say that they have seen somebody being cyberbullied during the past 6 months. And when we ask them, what have you done? Well, most of them say, well, in fact, I did nothing. The second most common answer was, I helped the victim, and then just a small percentage said, I joined the bully. Of course, these are self-reports, so I guess that there is some social desirability here in these answers. What we also notice is that choosing for one or another option really depends also on personal characteristics. Like younger children are much more inclined to help the victim. Those with higher levels of empathy are also more likely to help. And those who have been victimized themselves are also, or often indicate that they would help the victim or have helped the victim in the past. So personal characteristics really play an important role. But on the other hand, we noticed during the focus groups that, again, a lot also depends on the context. So what we saw, for instance, in the focus group was that youngsters mentioned, well, it depends on the relationship that we have with the people who are involved. If a friend is being cyberbullied, well, it's normal that you defend him or her. But if it is someone else, or if it's just an acquaintance, well, I do nothing then in that case. So the relationship or the status also of the victim or the bully plays an important role. So again, these contextual characteristics are very important. This is a study that was conducted by Sarah. She did an experimental study, also manipulating some kind of aspects of the context. And here you can also see that other important factors are the seriousness of the incident. Sarah created two kinds of cyberbullying. One was considered much more or much worse than the other. This is a type of cyberbullying where you use an embarrassing picture of somebody and really display it to a lot of people. And this is more an insult that is directed towards somebody. And you can see that pupils also say that in this case, I would be more inclined to help this person, while this is not really worth reacting to. So it depends. Oh, well, Sarah, do you have a good? This is you're such a loser, and this is why you have to check how she's sitting there in the toilet. Yeah. So, indeed, bystander behavior is also determined by the seriousness of the incident, but also by what other people are doing. If you see that a lot of people are liking this incident, well, you will be more inclined to, for instance, also like the cyberbullying that is going on. We use this research on bystander behavior to have a closer look and understand what's happening and what are people actually doing. As Sarah will also tell you later on, we use this research to formulate the kind of behavior that will possibly be also good to do in a cyber context. These are in fact the goals or the kind of behaviors that we would like to promote by using the game. So this is mostly based then on evidence that we have from traditional research and from the studies that are being conducted now. We also tried to look at what determines these positive or negative behaviors, so that we know what are the behavioral determinants of this behavior. So we do the research to formulate the goals, what is the positive behavior that we want, and this is a way to really say what do we have to modify in order to get that positive behavior. This is then the last slide. We will use this information that we gathered in the qualitative and quantitative research to develop a serious game. But you can already see that there are some other initiatives that also focus on promoting positive bystander behaviors through using narratives. This is an example from a Dutch website which uses interactive stories. Here you can see, or adolescents can watch some kind of storylines, scenarios, movies, and these are all portraying some kind of cyberbullying incident. And then it stops, and you as a viewer are asked to make a decision. So what would you do as a bystander of cyberbullying? And depending on what your reaction is, the decision you make, the story ends in a positive or more negative way. So I think this is also the link, again, with the narrative methods that you can use to collect these stories. You can also use these stories then to get real-life, realistic, engaging stories to also change behavior of youngsters for the better, so that they become positive bystanders or bystanders that use positive behavior. And in this way they can help reducing cyberbullying of its impact. So that's it for now, I think. Later on you will see the more concrete projects. So thanks.